Hey, what's going on? I am Jeremy Rouse. So this is something I've been chasing down for quite a while, really since the NFL draft, and thinking about 5 years since Joe Burrow was drafted, actually April 23rd, 2020. And it led me to this. Joe Burrow's parents' house, Joe Burrow's house he grew up in, and their living room. Now, you might notice seeing the drapes, they're different, the furniture is different, but man, the memories and the emotions are still there. I had a chance to sit down with Jimmy Burrow and Robin Burrow and talk to them about all the stories and the video we've never seen in a lot of ways from Joe Burrow's draft night and the most unique draft in NFL history during a pandemic. These right now are the extended raw interviews with Joe Burrow's parents.
Well, what I remember most about the night that Joe was drafted is, we were really nervous. I was exceptionally nervous about all of the technology failing because I was tasked with setting it up and making sure that it was working right. But, just like any other draft night, I think for people, the kids are sitting there waiting for their phones to ring. And yes, we had a pretty good idea that that was going to happen, but you still get nervous. And when the phone doesn't ring, as soon as the clock starts, the butterflies start a little bit in your stomach. So we were relieved when Joe's phone did ring, and just hearing Zach on the other line telling Joe that they were going to take him number 1 overall was amazing. I think Joe was trying to stay very calm, and the NFL had very specific rules that we could only have 6 people in the house, for example, and so we did have a small group of very close friends here that night, but we were trying to stay quiet and calm so that Joe could kind of do his Joe thing, which is always kind of be in the zone and focus. So I felt like he was a little nervous, probably more excited, but he had some nerves for sure. It kind of just threw me back to the Heisman night, honestly, which had not been very, it was recently at that point. Just so proud of him and thinking about all the hard work that he had put in, and there he was. It's amazing.
Still emotional?
Yeah.
Has to be unbelievable to think that your son has now had these moments.
Mm-hmm.
And the pride that you get as a mother watching all of that play out.
Yeah.
Why is it still so emotional for you?
I don't know. I didn't know I was going to be that emotional, but just so proud of him and everything that he had gone through to get to where he was that night. It was, it really had all just, it was just magnified. The feelings were magnified for sure. I think that for me, it's kind of like superstar Joe is one person, and then our Joey is another person. He's still just our son, and we're still just as nervous and every single game, proud of him every single game as we were when he was 8 years old. So I think being a parent it's the same across many, many years, and certainly it is a lot more intense now, but it's still the same feeling. I think that for Joe, he's always described his game day experience as a lot of energy and excitement, not really nerves. From the time he was little, he really talked about that. There really honestly only been a couple of times over the course of 20 years that he said, "Oh gosh, I was nervous today." And it hasn't been any time recently. So he just seems to, I think, just wrap his head around it in a different way than a lot of people do, and channels that energy into performing at a pretty high level usually.
What was that like for you in the aftermath to see all the reaction about what your drapes looked like and what, inviting America into your living room?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that before everything was broadcast. I just kind of figured like all of the families are in the same boat for this draft, and everyone's going to see our houses or wherever people decided to go. most cases you couldn't go anywhere, depending on what state you lived in. But I really hadn't thought about that before that night, and I think that I don't really pay a lot of attention to social media and what people are saying, so it doesn't really bother. Yeah. Nothing really bothers me about that. I like our house, and I was proud of our house, so that was fine. There were some critics of our draperies, yes, and we have changed things a little bit since then, but most people do in 5 years, so I'm fine with it. It doesn't bother me.
He did the Zoom call right after. Mm-hmm. It was in the house, right? He was still in the house. I imagine you guys were around. There was a small group of people here. What was that like for you, watching him do his first round pick Zoom call?
Yeah, so it was actually kind of crazy. What happened, he got right onto the Zoom call with the media. He was actually sitting just about right where we are today when he was doing that. And the Athens High School teaching staff, and a lot of our friends had organized a big parade of cars that came around our cul-de-sac here. And so there were honestly hundreds of cars driving by and honking and yelling for Joe to come out onto the front step, and he was doing his media sitting here. So we were trying not to get all of that noise in on his call. So we were waving through the window on the door to all the people who were trying to support him, and he was doing his media interviews. So that was pretty crazy.
I don't know if has that been shared? I had no idea, at least outside of here.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever shared that before, but that's what was going on. It was crazy.
There's cars circling.
Yeah.
Especially the way this is set up here, right? Like going around.
It's just a circle, yeah. So, and I mean, it was probably a half hour. People were just coming by and honking their horns and yelling out their windows. Everybody was very proud. Everyone is still so super supportive. This specific area here in Athens, there are a lot of Browns fans, there are some Steelers fans, but everybody's a Joe fan. And it doesn't matter where we go, if it's Walmart or Lowe's or Menards here in town, somebody always stops and tells us how proud they are of Joe and wishes him well. So that's very heartwarming. Well, certainly before he was the #1 pick, we weren't doing a lot of TV interviews. So, we're kind of thrust into the spotlight as well. And in some ways that's kind of challenging, but in other ways it's wonderful because we've been able to use that opportunity, that platform that Joe has in a lot of good ways. So we've been able to launch Joe's Foundation here in the last couple of years, and we're trying to help as many people as we can in the areas of food insecurity and youth mental health. So that has completely changed specifically for me because I stepped away from my principal position and I'm working full-time now for Joe's Foundation and doing as much good as we can.
And just a bonus, you see him become a fashion icon. I know I've talked to Dad about this some. What's that like for you? Do you have any kind of fashion background? Have I heard this before?
I do have a fashion background. My first degree was in fashion merchandising, and I worked in the retail fashion world for several years, and then in the gift retail world for several years. I love fashion, so I love it. And really from the time Joe was little, he kind of always, he was very opinionated about what he wore, whether it was making sure he was really kind of dressed when he was little bitty. If I got an outfit out for him and he didn't like it, nope, there was no way he was putting it on, and he would find what he wanted to wear. So he's always had that little thing in his mind.
So let it be known that Mom was like the first fashion expert in the family.
Well, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you flash back to, when you first saw him as a quarterback, maybe third grade, and the things he did in high school, and you never, of course, we dreamed of him playing college football, and his goal was always to do that and win a championship, but we never envisioned, the Heisman and then the #1 pick in the draft. So very proud But if you said yes, that's going to happen, that there's no way I would have predicted that. I think Joe was anxious to move on to his friends that we had rented out a place. Just again with COVID and all that, you had to be very careful. But I think once he hugged us and did his interviews, I found that he wanted to spend time with his high school teammates, and I always thought that was Joe. And that was what he preferred, as opposed to being in front of the cameras and all those type things. So that's something I remember about him. Well, it's quite a bit different to see him in those venues, whether it's the Met Gala or on the runway in Paris. And I think he likes that just as a change up from what you normally see him in his personality, which is somewhat guarded and very deliberate in what he says in press conferences. And then all of a sudden you see him in these different things, and you go, wow, that's Joe. But he's always liked to dress nice. Game day is big for him, to put things on like that. I don't always approve of what he wears. Robin does most of the time. But I think it's just part of him. It's something he's comfortable with, and it's just so different than maybe what his normal personality is, that he likes showing a different side of himself. But for us to see that, sometimes we just shake our head. Yeah, I mean, that was his goal when he went to college. That's probably why he chose Ohio State. He thought that was his best chance to win a national championship. That's why he eventually chose LSU, because he thought he had a chance. So that was his goal. And then soon as he achieved that goal, next up was to win a Super Bowl. And he wants to. He works hard at it. I think he thinks that it'd be great for not just Joe, but Cincinnati, the Bengals, and the whole state of Ohio. So he's fired up this year. He's healthy. He's able to really have an off season where he didn't really have to do any kind of rehab on an injury. So that's his focus, and it's pretty one-track mind when it comes to that for Joe. You're more recognizable. We do more of these interviews like we're doing with you. When it was the Heisman, those few weeks, Robin was still working, so I did a lot of them. But now we're together all the time. So I think I heard her say you're recognized, especially in town here, especially in Cincinnati. If you go to Baton Rouge, it's probably even more so than in Cincinnati, because they're so crazy about LSU and that 2019 team. But so it's changed a lot. I mean, we're still, in my mind, the same people character-wise that we've always been. We live in the same house. Joe likes us living in this house. We mentioned once that we might sell it one of these days, and who knows, maybe get a little warmer climate. And he said, "You mean you'd sell that house?" And we kind of looked at each other and said, I guess not, because he doesn't come back very often. But I think in his mind, it's a safe place for him to come and hang out for a few days, and it'll always be that way.
I want to just share that it's something very unique for Jimmy and Robin Burrow to let us into their house and to tell those stories. It's something they've never done. Talk about what happened on draft night and allow a TV camera into their living room to talk about that night. So very thankful for them. Also, I wanted to know, hey, look, your son is a superstar. He makes a ton of money. Have you thought about moving to Cincinnati, getting a bigger house, bigger car, all that stuff? They said, look, that's Joe's money. As for us, we've got friends and family in the Plains, which is where they live right near Athens. We love staying here where we've been for more than a couple of decades. Joe loves us staying here. They are very unassuming in a lot of ways. They're very humble in a lot of ways and private. And so it's cool to find out that they still kind of live the same life they always have, even before their son became a superstar. And once again, extremely unique for them to allow us inside their living room to tell those stories. And you saw it right here on Fox 19 Now. Thanks for joining us.